Hi, welcome to this next episode of my YouTube series Being Effective with UpNote. This week, Evernote versus UpNote. Let's go head to head. You see, the quest for a note-taking app, it's something that's plagued me for some time. I don't know if that's something that you can relate to at all. My first app of this type was Evernote, obviously, that great granddaddy of them all. And then years ago, when they limited the features of the free version of Evernote, especially limiting you to only 2 devices in sync, I switched, migrated everything across to Microsoft OneNote. I used Microsoft OneNote very happily for a good few years, then decided to pay for Evernote Plus. Do you remember that? And I switched everything back into Evernote. By the time lockdown began in 2020, I was back using OneNote again, and then during lockdown, I discovered Nimbus Notes. Nimbus Notes I thought would be the answer to all of my hopes, and I thought it was going to be the perfect note-taking app for my usage. But I had some issues, some bugs that affected the integrity of the actual notes themselves, and then there were 1 or 2 other complications with using Nimbus Notes. That made me bite the bullet. And as many of us did during lockdown, I suspect, I decided I was going to build something in Notion. I based it around Danny Hatcher's edit of Thomas Frank's note-taking system that he designed in Notion. Thomas Frank provides a free template, and I advise you to check that out because it is excellent if you're going to use Notion as a note-taking app. And I use this happily for quite a while, but it always felt a little bit risky, and there were several things that I really missed, like quick capture and other things like that. So I went back to Evernote. Throughout this time, I briefly tried out apps like NoteJoy, NotesNook, Slight, Obsidian, but I rejected them all. And also by this point, I'd rejected Microsoft OneNote as well because the mobile version of the app just didn't really play well with the desktop version. So it seemed my options were Evernote or Notion. Then, last year, about April last year, 2022, I discovered UpNote. Now, UpNote was a newer app in lots of ways. It wasn't something I'd ever heard of before. And even today, there are still some things missing from it, though a lot of those have been added since I found it. And there are some foibles with UpNote that do need resolving, particularly to do with drag and drop and using tables and things like that. You can check out some of the other videos in this UpNote series to see more information on those kind of things. So what I did is, actually in December 2022, I pitted Evernote and UpNote against each other in a head-to-head. And this was to choose my app once and for all. What am I going to use for taking my notes? And I thought it would be great to share my findings with you today in this video. So as I've said before, by and large, there are 4 things that I consider when I'm looking for a note-taking application. They fall into these 4 areas. Capturing information is the first. How easy is it to get stuff into the app? The second is editing and formatting your notes. What can you do with the notes, and what can you do in the notes themselves? The third is organization. What options does the app give you for organizing your information? And then the fourth is retrieval. Once the stuff is actually in the app, how easy is it to find it again? And this was one of the problems I had with Notion, actually. Finding things always seemed a little bit complicated. Before we dive in, I want to say in this video, I'm looking at the premium versions of both Evernote and UpNote here. Now, cost is going to become a factor at the end of the video. You see, Evernote's pricing it seems like it might be a little bit ambiguous. Most people are reporting massive price hike to around about £125 per year. Some people are saying they're getting discounts off that at the last minute from Evernote. UpNote at the moment, at the time of recording, is £24.99 for a lifetime subscription. So let's dive in and let's think first of all about capturing information. Capture. Now the hands down winner here is Evernote. For quick capture, Evernote boasts the Evernote helper on desktop, some excellent widgets on your mobile devices, UpNote, by contrast, has a global quick capture shortcut on desktop, and it does have a pretty good widget on the mobile, but it's not quite as good as Evernote's. I just want to show you a couple of those things here. So if I want to bring up the UpNote quick capture, I'm on a Mac here at the moment, so that is Command Option N, and you get this little box come up, and you can click in that and type a new note. Now a new note has been created as soon as I've pressed that shortcut, so if I don't type anything, you just get an untitled note show up in your uncategorized section. It is a genuine note window, so you can add it to a notebook if you want, and you can do any of the formatting down here, but in order to get rid of it, you actually have to either navigate away by clicking elsewhere on your screen or just clicking the close button, and then it opens up UpNote. The Evernote helper is a little bit less obtrusive than that. So if I press Command Control N, you get the Evernote helper come up. You can type whatever you want in here. Not literally, but that's what I'm going to do. What I like about this is it doesn't actually create the note until you click the button Convert to Note. Now, I don't know if you're a follower of Cal Newport, but one of the things that he recommends is that you have like a plain text file where you can make quick notes about what you're doing and where you're up to. So if you have to leave your work, you can then come back to it very quickly. You can actually use the Evernote helper for this as well, because if I then press Control Command N again, it comes up and whatever I typed in there before is still there. It also gives you a few other options that UpNote doesn't give you quite so easily, so you can capture your screen with that shortcut there. You can, once you've got the helper open, you can capture the current window, or you can capture whatever you've got selected. And then if you click Convert to Note, it just converts it to a note. So all in all, I find the Evernote helper better to use than the UpNote shortcut. Now on your mobile device, again, Evernote's quick capture widget is slightly better than UpNote's, because although they both basically do the same job, Evernote's quick note widget just brings up a little box on your screen where you can type something in and then save it as a note, whereas UpNote's actually creates a new note for you. Also, UpNote's widget can go on your home screen, but it can't go in your dock, whereas Evernote's is just a little button that you can put in your dock. So UpNote's quick capture on desktop and mobile is good, but it's not as good as Evernote's, and that's something that is important to remember. Now, when it comes to web clippers, both Evernote and UpNote have a web clipper. Evernote's is amazing. And you also have with Evernote the ability to send emails, to forward emails to your Evernote inbox. If you're using Outlook or Gmail, you can also get an add-in for those applications that enable you to convert emails to notes within Evernote. So all of this makes getting information into Evernote extremely fast, extremely easy, and possible to do without breaking your workflow, even when you're not in Evernote itself. So the runner-up here is UpNote. So how did I score Evernote and UpNote when it comes to capture? Well, there's no surprises here. As I said, Evernote is the hands-down winner. I've given it 40 points. UpNote was the runner-up. When I did this back in December, I gave it 23 points. So you've got the Evernote helper, 10 out of 10, global shortcut, 9 out of 10. Email, 10 out of 10 on Evernote's side. No email, 0 out of 10 on UpNote's side. A big letdown there. And then when it comes to the widgets on mobile, Evernote's is better, 10 out of 10. And then when it comes to the web clipper, Evernote's is a lot better. So there you have it. When it comes to capture, I think Evernote is one of the best applications on the market for capturing your notes. Editing and formatting your notes. Now, in this area, UpNote and Evernote are in a lot of ways quite similar, but UpNote for me snatches the top spot position. The edit and format features within UpNote are just worlds better than they are in Evernote, although they have a lot of the same options available and some of them are better in Evernote. Let's have a look at some of them, but obviously not all of them because of time. Now let's start with UpNote and just look at a few of the options that I really like the best. Now, I use quotes quite a bit in the different things that I do. I think they look really good in UpNote, and I love the fact that you can change the background colour. Let's make that blue. Changes it to a nice blue. Let's make it red. You can also have collapsible sections, which I also use. Check out my video on dashboards to see a way of using collapsible sections in UpNote. Again, you can change the background colour. Let's make it orange this time, and you can expand it and see what's in there. Again, I love this feature. If you're a coder, then the code blocks within UpNote also are really helpful because they've got all of the color coding syntax in there. You can put in simple tasks and checklists, whatever you want, and then you can add tables as well. Now, one of the weaknesses within the note editor of UpNote is dragging and dropping. So, for example, I can select that and drag it into here, but I cannot copy and paste a row of a table. It just copies everything, because I copied it a second ago, it just copies everything that was already on the clipboard. You can't copy out of a table within UpNote. You can copy the whole table and then paste the whole table and then delete the bits that you don't want, but you can't just copy and move around rows. And you'll see in a moment that Evernote is much better. I am planning to release a video on all of the different keyboard shortcuts available within the note editor of UpNote, but one of the things I want to show you now that they've just released is slash commands. Slash commands, you just type a basic / and then you've got access to whatever you want, including collapsible sections, or you can change the color, you can put in a quote, basically anything that is in this list. You can add via typing the command via a slash command, and that is just a really helpful way of editing and formatting your notes really quickly within UpNote. By contrast, if we move over to Evernote, you'll see all of the same stuff. There's no quotes available for you in Evernote. The best you can do would be to put it in a table. Let's delete that column, and let's delete that row, and then let's move that in there. And then you can change the background color to whatever you want. That's the best you can do to put a quote in Evernote and make it stand out. There's no collapsible sections either in Evernote, so that's what it's put in. The code blocks also aren't as good because there's no syntax color coding. The checklist is basically a checklist. Evernote has Evernote tasks, which UpNote doesn't have. So you can give that a due date, you can set a reminder. If you want to, you can flag it, you can make it recurring. You can do all kinds of things with it really in here. And then you have a separate task list within Evernote that shows all of your tasks from all of your notes. Now, whilst I think this is a good feature, the task management feature and functions within Evernote are really quite basic, and you'll find much better task management options available to you in a free task manager app like Microsoft To Do, or using the free version of something like Todoist or TickTick. So if you're wanting to manage tasks, Evernote really isn't your best option. If you're using Evernote already as a note-taking application, and you only have very basic task management needs, then maybe you can use Evernote tasks and keep it all in one space, and I can see ways in which that would work. But if you're keeping your notes and your tasks separate, I don't see Evernote tasks as a big reason as to why you should switch. Now, the one thing that Evernote is better at is, as I said, with the tables here, you can select this column and you can drag it. You can create a new table from the column, splitting it, and then if you wanted to, you could just add it back in or bring it over here. You can do the same with a row, create a new table, put it back in wherever you want. The drag and drop feature within Evernote is much better than the drag and drop feature within UpNote. There's no way around it. And for things like tables and other stuff like that, that is really, really helpful. If you're using a mobile phone, personally, I find that the way the menus for editing and formatting work on my mobile within Evernote makes it really much more complicated to do things like change the font color or change the heading style and things like that. Whereas on UpNote, it's pretty straightforward. You've got a simple menu across the bottom that scrolls, and there's no sort of going into different layers and levels of the menu to try and find the options you want. So editing and formatting, on the whole, on desktop and on mobile, is better on UpNote. Let's have a look at the scores that I've given them. So as I said, UpNote is the winner here, but it's not as significant as Evernote was better than UpNote in capture. I've given 30 points to Evernote, 36 to UpNote, and it basically works out. I look at the colours. I think the colours in UpNote are better in dark mode. The colours in Evernote are better in light mode, and Evernote has a few more colour options than UpNote does, with a sort of a heavy and a more pastel shade in every colour. In terms of user interface for editing and formatting on both desktop and mobile, I think Evernote's user interface for edit and format is pretty mediocre, especially on mobile where it's quite complicated to use the menus. By contrast, UpNote's user interface, particularly with the introduction of slash commands, it's just better. So it makes it so much easier to actually use the interface in order to edit and format your notes. Hence why I've given Evernote 5 out of 10 and UpNote 8 out of 10. Evernote has, I think, the best simple tables functionality of any note-taking app on the market. And the reason why I've put tables for columns under UpNote is because one of the things I like doing in my notes is putting information side by side. Now that is great in something like Notion because you can create columns by dragging and dropping things side by side. Neither Evernote or UpNote are a block-based editor, but you can put information side by side in a table. Evernote's tables are better than UpNote's. Moving things around within the note, dragging and dropping, etc., etc., it works really well in Evernote. It's tricky to do in UpNote. Hence, I've given Evernote a higher score than UpNote. When it comes to the formatting types available, your headers, your collapsible sections, your quotes, your code blocks, the options are pretty basic from my point of view. In Evernote, everything that I would want a note-taking application to do, UpNote does, whereas Evernote doesn't do all of them, hence why I've given UpNote a much higher score there. And overall, you've got UpNote 36, Evernote 30. Let's move on to organisation. Now, this is a key thing for a note-taking application, and it's possibly going to be the most controversial section here, because it's where my opinions on what is and what isn't good for organisation within a note-taking app are going to show through. For me, UpNote is the clear winner here. It should be noted that Evernote has recently improved its note linking features, which impacts this a little bit from when I did it back in December 2022. But the way of linking notes in Evernote is, in my view, still quite clunky, whereas in UpNote it just works and it's really straightforward. So let's have a look at organisation. Now, UpNote's organisation options are really, really good. So on the notebook side, you have a nested hierarchy of notebooks, which you can nest several notebooks deep. And I find that really, really helpful. You can also have inline tags, and note linking is also really, really easy. Let's do that. You can pin notes, so within your note list, they're organised always to the top of the list, and you can do that by just pressing this pin button or using that keyboard shortcut, and that will pin the note. And you can star the note, and then it will show up in your quick access, which you can organise to wherever you want. One of the things I really like about UpNote is that notes can exist, as you can see down here at the bottom, in more than one notebook, which I find really helpful. And a little touch, it doesn't really improve your productivity that much, but you can have custom notebook covers, which is something that I do just to improve the aesthetic of the app. In Evernote, the organization options are actually a little bit more basic, in my opinion. You can have notebook stacks, which are, as they sound, basically just stacks of notebooks. They don't actually contain notes, so they're not notebooks and sub-notebooks. It's a stack and then a notebook, and you can only have like one level of hierarchy there. So a stack which can't contain notes, and then notebooks within the stack. Tagging is also a bit more basic. You'll see your tags down here. Tags for the note. You can't have inline tags like you can in UpNote. You can do note linking in Evernote. It's a little bit more clunky than, I can't remember what the shortcut is. So I just press that, and it brings up this box where you can type in your note and then insert a note link. So it's a little bit slower to insert a note link in Evernote. Personally, I also find it a little bit slower to organize your notes into notebooks. Even though you can drag and drop, if you're not dragging it into a notebook that is in a stack that you have open, that can be quite difficult, and changing the notebook up here in the move note function is for me a little bit slower than the options for adding and moving notebooks within UpNote. One area where Evernote does come out on top is within the shortcuts. In UpNote, you can obviously pin notes to the top of the note list, which you can't do in Evernote, and you can save notes to your quick access like your shortcuts. And you can also, within UpNote, I should say, have these are sort of saved filters or searches that you can have up here. In Evernote, you can add anything you want to your shortcuts. So here you can have a notebook in your shortcuts, you can have a saved search in your shortcuts, there's a tag there in the shortcuts, and here's a note in the shortcuts. So Evernote shortcut list is just a little bit more versatile than UpNote. Although I do think for me, in the way that I use the app, being able to pin notes and star them is a little bit more helpful than being able to add tags and notebooks to my shortcuts. Back in UpNote now, one thing that I do actually like is the fact that you can actually, your sidebar, you can choose what you have in it. So you can hide a notebook from the sidebar, and then it disappears from the sidebar. It still exists, but you just don't have to see it in your sidebar. So in effect, your sidebar can be just a list of your favourites, and anything that's archived, you can hide it from the sidebar. It still exists, and if I go into my notebooks and open up this stack and open up this stack, you can see the notebook that I've hidden still exists, and if I click it, it will open it again in the sidebar. That is a feature that I find really useful. So let's have a quick look at the scores for organization that I gave these two apps. So you'll see here, UpNote is for me the clear winner with 56, and Evernote having 36. So for me, Evernote has quite a basic hierarchy, nested hierarchy of stacks and notebooks, whereas in UpNote, the world is your oyster. So UpNote gets 10, Evernote gets 6. I actually think the simple tagging system that Evernote offers is really good, whereas UpNote's inline tags for me is better. I'm still working out exactly how to use inline tags to the fullest of their potential, but I just think it is better to have inline tags than note tags. Linking is improved in Evernote, so I've upgraded it from what it was before to 7 out of 10. Because you can add it with a keyboard shortcut now, whereas before you had to find the note, copy the link, and then paste it into the note. And it now offers backlinks, whereas it didn't before. It is a bit clunky though. It doesn't feel as slick as it does in UpNote, so that's why UpNote has a much, much higher score there. Shortcuts in Evernote I think are really good, but for me, having pins and having favourites and being able to control what's in your sidebar means that UpNote just gets a higher score. I have given a score for personalization, although I don't think that this impacts your productivity that much. It just makes the app feel better to use. You can't do that really in Evernote, whereas in UpNote you can have custom notebook covers, and as I said before, you can control what you see in your sidebar. And then I find organising things in Evernote to be a little bit tricky and a little bit slow, whereas in UpNote I find it much, much quicker. So overall, UpNote gets 56, Evernote gets 36. And then lastly, we have Retrieval. Getting information out of your Notes app is key. That's what it's all about. You can have the whole world's worth of knowledge stored in your Notes app, but if you're never going to look at it and you can't find it, it's useless. So this retrieval is really important. Now, Evernote wins here, simply because the search within Evernote and the options available to you are so good. Before we look at search, good old-fashioned finding things yourself. Now, in Evernote, it's a little bit hard to say, really, because you can only nest on one level. Searching for a notebook depends on how many notebooks you've got in your stack. Now, I've seen some people showing videos on YouTube where they've got literally hundreds of notebooks in a stack of notebooks, and that for me is going to make it almost impossible to find any particular notebook. But because you can't separate or group those notebooks in a deeper sort of nesting, the options there are limited. And if you are in that situation, manually finding things within Evernote is going to be very, very difficult. Whereas in UpNote, because you can nest your notebooks on multiple different levels there, it's going to be a little bit easier to organize things in such a way that you can find things manually if you want to. When it comes to using the search features of the app, now Evernote has one thing that UpNote doesn't, and that is the quick switcher. So as I said, I'm on a Mac. If I just press Command J, it brings up this quick switcher and I can type what I'm looking for, and there you go. And it will switch me to that note, or it will search for that word in all of my notes. UpNote doesn't have this. Within any notes list of Evernote, including your All Notes list, you can add filters, so you can filter it based on tags. You can filter it based on different things that it might contain within the note. You can filter it based on when it's created, and you can filter it based on when it was last updated. And then the search box, you can search the current notebook, you can search everywhere, you can add filters, and then I'm not going to go through them all now for the purposes of this video, but there are certain commands and things that you can type into the search box that will enable you to search for things that have no tags, are in a particular notebook, are tagged with a particular tag. And this might be a feature that is now reserved for some of the more expensive subscriptions, but there's also sort of what they call Boolean search, where you can search for this, or you can search for this or this. The search is really good. The search is really advanced. One of the things I find, or I used to find, I should say, really good with Evernote search is it is pretty good at putting the notes that you want towards the top of the list. Over in UpNote now, the search isn't quite as good. It doesn't have the quick switcher, but it does have a few keyboard shortcuts that are helpful. So there's a keyboard shortcut to search within your note that you're working on. There's a keyboard shortcut to search within your notebook that you're currently in. And then there's a keyboard shortcut to search throughout all of your notes. It's not as good as Evernote. It's not as precise. You don't have the sort of the ands and the ors that you have in Evernote. You can't as easily filter by different things and all the different options, and there's no quick switcher. That having been said, every single time I've used the search in UpNote, in this little search box up here, somewhere within the first 15 to 20 notes down the list will be the thing that I'm looking for. At the end of the day, it's results that count, and using the search function within UpNote finds me what I'm looking for almost as quickly as it does within Evernote. The only thing that UpNote lacks is the quick switcher, having a little box pop up that will take you direct to the note or notebook that you're looking for. I should also just say that both Evernote and UpNote allow you to save your searches, which is really, really good. UpNote takes it one step further in that you can actually copy a link to a saved search and then paste that link into your note. So let's have a look at the scores for search and retrieval of notes. It's not really that surprising, but when I scored this back in December, Evernote wins. I gave it 34 points. UpNote, I gave it 29 points. Evernote, it's a bit mixed to manually find what you're looking for. It depends on how many notebooks you've got within your stacks. UpNote, I find it pretty quick actually in UpNote to manually find the notes that I'm looking for. Especially, I didn't say this earlier, as there's an option where within your note list, when you click on a notebook, at the top it will also list out your sub-notebooks. That makes it really quick, in my view, to manually find what you're looking for. Evernote, the search function is really, really good. UpNote, you can search everything. It's not quite as neat as it is in Evernote, but it works. And because it works, I can't score it too much lower than Evernote's. In Evernote, the search is excellent and it's very accurate, so it gets the highest mark. The search is good in UpNote, as I said. It finds what you're looking for, although perhaps not quite as slick as Evernote. And Evernote's got that quick switcher, whereas UpNote doesn't. So Evernote wins on the retrieval front for me. And so I went head to head between Evernote and UpNote to try and decide which of them was going to be my note-taking application of choice. And UpNote comes out on top. Overall, UpNote got 144 points and Evernote got 140. So UpNote is the winner, but only just. But here's the thing, and this is why I said cost becomes a factor at the end. Because Evernote costs £125 per year. And now I've bought a lifetime license of UpNote, which when I bought it, it was £17 for a lifetime license. The current lifetime license of UpNote is £25. That's a fifth, 1/5 for a lifetime license of the annual recurring cost of Evernote. So I've settled on UpNote as my note-taking app of choice for the time being. The cost of Evernote, in my opinion, is just not justified by any of the features that Evernote currently has. Now, I know that they're bending spoons are trying to take them into the whole sort of AI world and all of that kind of thing. But most apps are doing that. Notion is doing that. ClickUp is doing that. There are plenty of other AI apps and apps going down the AI front. Just check out Francesco D'Alessio's latest video on AI apps and all of his stuff on Toolfinder. There is nothing particularly special that I can see about what Evernote is doing that justifies it as being one of the most expensive productivity tools on the market. And especially when, as a pure straight note-taking application goes, the features that Evernote provides are not as good as the features that would be provided by UpNote or Notion, or even if you argue that Evernote's better in some respects and those respects are more important to you, my question is it enough better, and are those different things important enough that it justifies the additional cost? For me, they're not. For you, they might be. That's fine. It's just a question that I've asked, and I've come to the answer that Evernote, it's just not worth it for me. If UpNote ever introduces an email feature where you can email your notes in, if it tidies up tables within the note, moving things around, dragging and dropping, and if it makes some minor improvements to their search, then this fantastic application becomes the hands-down winner here by quite a significant margin. So there's a little bit of an explanation for you. I went head-to-head, I pitted them against each other, and I settled with UpNote as the winner. Now, if you've liked this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe to the channel. There's a subscribe button on the screen now. I'm producing more videos about UpNote. I've also got another series running, which is building an effective productivity system. And then I'm also throwing in some general productivity, time management, effectiveness stuff as well. And a few, as I discover them, sort of quick tips videos about all of the different applications that I use. So check out some of these videos that are on your screen now. As I said, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the next video. Thanks very much.